Hi everybody, welcome to chapter 3 of our little mini course about the IELTS Writing Self-evaluation guide. In this video, we're going to look at the next scoring criterion. We're going to talk about Lexical Resource. Now, in the first video, I told you about my book, about the IELTS Writing Self-evaluation guide. And we also had a little bit of an introduction into the writing section and things you need to think about in terms of scoring. In the last video, in chapter 2, we looked at grammatical range and accuracy. Today, we're looking at lexical resource, which basically means vocabulary. Now, before I get into this, it's very important to remember that all 4 writing score criteria have equal weight. That means that each of them is worth 25% of your score. Now the reason I'm mentioning this now is that a lot of people think that if they put in a lot of big fancy words into their essays, their score will go up. That's not really how it works. Okay, so it's very important to remember to focus on all parts of the writing. The grammar, the vocabulary, the content, and the organization. Grammar, vocabulary together, just half your score. So let's get into understanding the lexical resource criterion. These are the scores descriptors from the official descriptors from the IELTS website. And I just want to point out a couple of words here to help you get an idea of what they're looking at. Look at band 8. We're going to compare bands 8 and 7. Notice that they go from a wide range of vocabulary to a sufficient range of vocabulary. And they go from fluently and flexibly to some flexibility and precision. So basically, as the band score goes down, their expectations also go down, right? So don't worry too much about impressing the examiners with vocabulary. Worry more about being clear and delivering your message clearly, right? And remember what we spoke about before about holistic reading? Make sure that the vocabulary helps progress the ideas, not vocabulary just to have vocabulary. That's not what this test is about. And also notice that you can produce rare errors in spelling or word formation for band 8, and you can have occasional errors. So you can have more and more errors as the band score goes down. But again, this is very general, very broad descriptions. Let's look at a little bit more specific requirements for the lexical resource. So first of all, what is lexical resource? Lexical resource measures your range of and ability to use a variety of words, terms, idiomatic expressions, and I'll talk about that in a second, and other collocations in terms of meaning, precision, contextual appropriateness, are the right words used in the right place, and of course spelling. Lexical refers to vocabulary, the words themselves, while resource refers to the words and the tools that you have at your disposal. Synonyms, word formations, all kinds of different things that you can use to work your vocabulary and make your vocabulary more effective. Okay? Now, a few other things to keep in mind, some highlights, and again, there's more in the book that you can get more specific details, but keep in mind that what they are looking for the most is usage. Are you using the words correctly and appropriately and in the right context? Paraphrasing, make sure that you don't use words from the task in your introduction paragraph. Change these words, change the construct of the introduction so you're not repeating the word, but you're still getting the same idea across. Collocations, this means phrasal verbs, idioms, mixing certain words that naturally go together. They are looking for this. You can and should use phrasal verbs and idioms. Just make sure you're using appropriate ones, the academic level ones, and don't force them into the writing. Wordiness. If you can say something in 2 words, don't use 5 or 6 words to say the same thing. Consistency. Make sure that if you're using big words, you're using big words all the way through. If you're using only simple words and then 1 or 2 big words, those 1 or 2 big words stick out. Avoid repetition. Use synonyms. They're checking your degree of difficulty. Do you know like very difficult words or only simple words? And your word choice obviously is an important factor. So now, some of the questions that they're asking themselves as they're reading your essay or your summary: does the writer use a wide range of vocabulary? Are you using too many simple words? Are you using too many basic words? Are you repeating words, etc.? Does the writer use words that are relevant to the topic or context? They want to see some precision. If you're talking about the environment, do you have certain words that are used to talk about the environment? That's basically what this means. That's what precision means. And are you using words, like for another thing about precision that comes to the wordiness? Can you use the one word to avoid having to use 5 words to explain something? Especially in task 1 in the summary, are you making good use of function words? When you're describing how something is going up or down, or you're comparing things, make sure you have the right vocabulary for this. And are you making use of idiomatic language? Is it forced? Is it natural? Is it correct? Is it accurate? Etc. Again, more questions than these, but these are the essential questions. And some of the reasons for more common reasons for losing points in the LR. The paraphrasing, I already discussed. The repetition, again, try to avoid that. Usage, form, contextual, appropriateness. So again, these are just the main reasons that you're going to lose points. Now, forced memorized vocabulary items. The examiners understand and recognize when you're forcing words or when you're forcing expressions into the writing, mostly because they don't belong there, or compared to the rest of your essay, these words were obviously memorized and put in wherever you had the opportunity. So just a suggestion: don't memorize a word list and try to use the words just to use the words. If they fit in the context, use them. If they don't, don't. And tone and consistency. Make sure you're using academic tone. Don't use slang. Don't use casual expressions, etc. The main thing you want to consider is that vocabulary should not draw attention. The reader shouldn't notice the vocabulary. It should just work and get the message. The reader should notice the message that's being delivered. So now, some examples. So here, in this sentence, first of all, in turn, this is a collocation, but it's also a transitional expression. Something happens, so something happens because of that. This doesn't belong here. It has no function here in this sentence. And personal, although it is a correct word, it is not the right word that the writer meant here. He or she meant personnel. Different spelling, different pronunciation. Again, pronunciation not important in writing, but make sure you're using the correct word. Now, the reason I'm also using this example is that this one sentence will lose the writer points in lexical resource and cohesion and coherence and grammatical range and accuracy, because the wording makes the whole idea unclear. I'm not exactly sure what the person is trying to say unless I think about it. The examiners, they're just going to read very quickly. If they don't understand it, they move on. They don't waste time trying to guess your meaning. So you try to be very clear. And I gave you a better, a well-written sentence underneath. And then also another thing, well-developed industry, sustained industry. You're using the word industry twice. You don't need to. It's the same industry. Make sure you reduce the wordiness. In the next example, the underlined words. Loads of is a very casual expression. It's almost slang. If you're not sure if the word fits, don't use it. Simple words work much better if they are clear and appropriate to the context. Instead of loads of, just say many, which basically loads of means. Too casual. Proper nouns, you don't need to capitalize every letter, just the first letter. If the name has like 2 capitals, like YouTube has a capital Y, capital T, that's fine. Know the names, otherwise only the first letter, okay? Okay, next, parts of speech. Now, parts of speech obviously affect your GRA score, but they also affect your LR score because maybe you don't know the other forms of the words. So for example, interfering, gerund, should actually be the noun here, interference. Solution noun should actually be the gerund, solving, right? So make sure you're using the correct part of speech so the examiners don't think that maybe you're limited in understanding these words, that you actually know the different parts of speech of the different words you're using. Now, okay, so here, this example is about wordiness. So many rich people fly either domestically or internationally just to shop around. And when they do that, they shop till they drop on their shopping trip. You don't need to tell me they're going shopping 3 times in one sentence. Once is enough, I will understand. Also, shop till they drop. This is a very slang expression, very casual expression. It doesn't belong here. So here you're losing points for LR because at least, at the minimum, use a different word than shopping or shop. There are other words you can use to express this. But also for cohesion and coherence, because you're not just repeating the words 3 times, you're repeating the idea 3 times, which is just unnecessary, right? So avoid doing that. And be careful again with collocations. Flying tickets. Flying tickets are tickets that have wings and fly. Whereas this person probably wants to buy flight tickets, a ticket to take a flight, right? So be careful about that. Next example, obviously I'm not going to read it, but I just want you to notice all the green highlights, all the yellow highlights. All the green highlights, student, 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 student. All the yellow ones, knowledge, 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 knowledge. These repetitions stick out to the examiner, right? There are other words for students. There are other words for knowledge. There are pronouns you can use in place. There are ways to construct a sentence that you can put 2 ideas to the 1 noun. Don't use the same word so many times because your score is just dropping very quickly then, okay? Because it's very easy to notice. Wordiness. A true leader takes the burden of blame upon himself. So takes the burden of blame, 7 words. I can say the same thing with 3 words, bears the blame. And if you want a less commonly used word, shoulders the blame. Shoulder can be a verb. If you can use the simple everyday word shoulder as a verb, you're showing a lot of range and a lot of lexical resource and your score goes up. The last example, just notice the word pernicious. Now, the word pernicious is used correctly here and it means what it's supposed to mean. Basically negative or bad effects, but the reason I underlined it is because the rest of the essay uses very simple everyday words. And then suddenly this big academic word stuck in there. It's very clear to the examiner that you memorized this word or maybe a bunch of words and you're just trying to put it in there to impress them. They are not impressed. Memorization is not a skill that will impress them. So keep that in mind. And last one, especially in task 1, be very careful with the function words. Make sure that something doesn't fall up. Fall, down, rise, up. Make sure you know how to use these common words, these function words. Okay, so that's it. And again, you can get a lot more information, that you can see a lot more examples in my book because I fix all grammar mistakes, all vocabulary mistakes, and you can learn from other people's mistakes what to avoid and how points are easily lost for these 2 categories, okay? Now, if you have any questions about this, please ask in the YouTube comment section. In the next video, we're going to look at cohesion and coherence as the next scoring criteria, okay? I'll see you then. Bye-bye.